And joining us live from Yangon, our analyst, Dr. Aung Thura, the CEO of research firm Thura Swiss. Welcome to the program, sir.
Good evening.
Hello, good evening.
Hello. Hi. The Myanmar first set the deadline to open its stock exchange market in 2015. The deadline now has been moved up faster to the end of this year or as early as next year. What could be the implications behind this move, and why does Myanmar seem to be in such a hurry?
I think we have to set it in the right framework and to have the right expectations about the stock exchange. So moving the deadline to 2015 doesn't mean that everything will now start earlier. It just means that we will not have, instead of a hard opening, there will be just more a gradual beginning. So the first stage will mean that the securities exchange law will now be enacted within 1 month. Then the Securities Exchange Commission will be formed. A new building for the stock exchange will be selected, and then the technical infrastructure will be made ready. So it doesn't mean that we will be now just starting immediately, but it means it's like more a gradual start.
So do you think that this new deadline is practical, given that there's still the technical infrastructure, human resources, and also the legislation that needs to support this stock system, the stock markets?
If we are really talking about a full-fledged stock exchange, then no, we are not ready yet. But I think, especially in terms of human resources or in terms of even available companies, nothing is ready yet. And there are no brokers, no market makers, no securities companies or banks. The settlement system is not ready yet. But it is a good way to start training people to do demonstrations. And also, maybe I need to explain the company's landscape now in Myanmar. In Myanmar, we have a very particular setup because even before the securities exchange law was in place, there were many new public companies formed within the last month. We have around 80 new public companies. And these companies are operating in an unregulated market. They're not really listed. So we need to find a way how owners of these shares can sell their shares in a more regulated way. So if we are talking about the stock exchange, it's more about finding a mechanism for these companies to be traded without having really the full-fledged stock exchange in place yet.
Right, so the report said only the local companies will be listed first. What would be the requirement for Myanmar local companies in order to be listed?
In the moment, with the current setup, there will be only local companies listed. And with the current law, only local Myanmar nationals can buy stocks at the exchange. So one thing, if Myanmar wants to give foreigners access to the local stock market, we would need to upgrade the law. And as much as I hear, there are some initiatives in that direction. Regarding the requirements, initially, for the 2015 stock exchange, the requirement was quite stringent. The companies, rather big companies, will be elected to be listed at the stock exchange. And they need to show a track record of 2 years that they can have profits and so on. But it's also a matter of finding the balance. If you have too little requirements, then nobody will really have trust in the stock market. But if the requirements are too high, then no company will be listed. And this is also one of the fears many experts have, that Myanmar's stock market will develop similar to, for example, Cambodia or Laos.
Now, despite the fact that you just said there's about some 8 million new public companies in Myanmar for the past few years, right?
18 public companies.
18, sorry. From my understanding and also my colleagues' understanding is that Myanmar companies tend to prefer more to go and list their companies in Singapore. So do you think that with this step, going into effect in the next few years, will the Myanmar companies be interested to be listed in the Myanmar Stock Exchange?
There are various reasons why some of Myanmar companies want to get listed. Typically, these are listed in Singapore. Typically, those are large conglomerates, privately held companies in Myanmar. And one of the reasons is maybe getting access to the capital markets, and the other reason is about prestige. Many of the owners of these companies are on the U.S. sanctions list, so it's like a way to clean their image, to get a better image when getting listed. But however, just recently, one of the companies aspiring to get listed in Singapore was denied by the Singapore Stock Exchange. So this has closed the whole pipeline for Myanmar companies to get listed in Singapore. So what I can imagine is with the stock exchange coming earlier, many Myanmar companies will rather now wait and see if the Myanmar capital market might be interesting enough for them to get listed.
Aung Thura, just to get some things, just to clear out my curiosity, because with the 18 companies just set up in Myanmar, and Myanmar Stock Exchange wanting to emerge in the next few years, your suggestions towards those companies about what they need to prepare in order to get ready for the stock exchange?
Among these 80 companies, we have to distinguish a bit between these companies, because some companies are just public companies, but they are nominal public companies, but they are like maybe only 6 or 7 shareholders. Mm-hmm. So they are more guided or structured like a private company. And some companies really are really public companies, have a broad shareholdership structure and so on. So it's not like the landscape is not very uniform among these 80 companies. There are big differences. And out of these 80 companies, I would guess like maybe 10 to 15 companies are really have a broad shareholdership structure. So for these companies, what they need to do is they need to get their books clean. There might be some tax issues from the past. They need to clean this up. What they need to do is they need to do a proper valuation. They need to be profitable and all these kind of things to prepare so that they will be eligible in 2014 or 15 when the stock exchange comes in place.
Mm-hmm. Right, sure. In the establishment of the stock exchange market, what can we expect to see by the end of this year, or probably as early as next year?
As I say, don't have too high expectations. I think mainly the stock exchange might come a bit earlier, but it will be not big volume business at the beginning. It's just more kind of a gradual opening instead of a hard opening. Mm-hmm. And until this market develops, it will take some time, especially also for foreign investment. It can take some time until the market becomes really interesting for foreign investors.
Mm-hmm. But when can Myanmar actually benefit from the opening of stock exchange? As you know, the beginning would be just only Myanmar companies.
Pardon, please. When
can Myanmar will actually benefit from the stock exchange? As first, there will be only Myanmar companies in the list, because the intentions of Myanmar to start the stock exchange is because they want to have like more money for the development. When can Myanmar actually benefit? I mean,
from having
this stock exchange, I would say.
Sure. I would say, as I say, it's like a gradual development. So even if 2014 or 15 the stock exchange opens, and there might be not so much volume at the beginning, and then the volume will develop over time. This is like in every country where stock exchange is developed. It will be something that takes time. Mm-hmm. But of course, shareholders or people already holding shares out of these 80 companies, it will be interesting if the market becomes more transparent and they can see like how much is really paid for the investment.
Right.
All right. Thank you so much for your insight tonight.
Thank you for joining us.
Okay, thank you very much.
Have a good night.
Have a nice
And so, Kun Honoree, Myanmar is going to have a lot of projects up in its pockets, right?
Right. In order to operate stock exchange is not an easy task.
Of course.
Right,
of course.
and they need to. The main problem that I've been talking to many investors that is the human resources. I mean, Myanmar need to build the capacity of their own people in order to be able to operate the stock exchange
efficiently.
Efficiently, exactly.